Hey everyone, it's Michael again with another video in my ever best lighting home studio. You can see the reflection here, I have the ring light and I lost the charger, so just doing the video like this. But I want to talk about a very important topic today, which is how to conjugate verbs in Spanish without having to memorize the actual conjugations. So I understand that this can be hard for a lot of Spanish speakers, I totally get it. But the answer to this is, and right here, this is the answer, you need to learn the pattern of the verb conjugation instead of the actual conjugations themselves, because this is no longer high school Spanish, college Spanish, where the teacher gives you a bunch of random conjugations and random verbs and says, conjugate them. You should know all of them. That's not how real life works. You should know all the patterns and then start to almost like guess them, because language learning is an art, not a science. It reminds me of the quote by Tim Ferriss that says, what would this look like if it were easy? And by that, it is to just focus on the pattern and then it will come. And it will come when you're speaking with native speakers, because hopefully you're doing your due diligence and you are speaking with native speakers 3 to 4 times a week. Now, when it comes to irregular verbs, those verbs that, they do anything during the conjugations, those unfortunately you do have to memorize. But ser, estar, tener, poder, ir, all these irregular verbs, they come up in conversation a lot. They're very well used. So at least it's not some obscure verb that when you do have to use it, you're like, oh my gosh, the conjugation is completely off. I have no idea. These verbs are always in there. So if you are doing your due diligence and you're speaking with native speakers, it should come up very often. It should be some of the verbs that you know the best. I've already done another video that talks about the most important verbs in Spanish, and 2 of them are ser y estar. Why? Because you're using them all the time. If you can't use those, it kind of shows your lack of knowledge. If you can conjugate a bunch of different things in the subjunctive, conditional, but you can't conjugate ser y estar right, it's a big red flag. And another stream of consciousness that just came up, also, when students are guessing verb conjugations, when we're like, is it corrió? It's usually right. Whenever you're guessing a verb and you know the pattern and you're like, is it this? Usually it's right. Or even if you guess it wrong and you go, oh, it's this. I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, it's the other one. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I was going to say that. It's like always in the back of your mind, but we're a little too hesitant. Like when we really don't know a conjugation, we usually circumvent around it. We don't even try it. When we try it, it's because we kind of have an idea. So be confident in yourself. You got this. Learn the conjugations. It will make everything so much easier. You don't want to sit in a dark room 6 hours a day learning conjugations, because when you're learning a language, hopefully you have other hobbies too. There's other stuff you want to do. And, sitting in a room writing out these textbook conjugations all day sounds very boring. Grammar is like Victor Wooten. He's a very, very good bassist. And he talks about musical theory like this, and this I'm paraphrasing, but he says, music theory is there for when you run into a problem. Now, he's a very good musician, so how can we take this into the grammar context? Grammar is there for when you run into a problem. So when you hear native speakers talk, they're talking on feeling. They're not going, okay, I'm going to put the verb here and the direct object over there and the subject in between. They're just talking. And when some of them have a disagreement, they're like, I don't know how to say this. Do you? I don't know. Like, I thought you were saying it correctly. Then they start to say, oh, what is the grammar? Just like musical theory. So you definitely need musical theory if you want to become a musician. You definitely need grammar, right? But they're building blocks so that you can eventually get away from it and start to kind of feel how the language goes. Because maybe you learn how to say something one way and the grammar is just slightly different in another Spanish speaking country. And you're like, oh, shoot, now I have to switch. I don't know. It goes by feeling. A lot of language is by feeling, because if you do it by science, you're going to be in the classroom for ages, memorizing every single verb conjugation, every single tense. Go by feeling. So learn the pattern and it will come into play. Just learn where the stem is, where the ending comes in, all that good stuff, and just guess. And when you guess, as your language partner, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Why did I get it wrong? Why did I get it right? I'll come back. And this form actually helps you retain the verb conjugations better, Because if you're learning a piece of grammar, like I've said in other videos, if you're learning a piece of grammar that you don't need yet, it's superfluous. You'll completely forget about it. But if you're trying to say something to your language partner and it's just not coming out, you're like, oh, I'm trying, I don't know how. And I finally give you that key of grammar that you're like, oh, you just have to put it into the imperfect. You say and it makes sense. You're like, I am never forgetting that. That is such a good tip and you will use it forever. It happened to me when I was learning French. So already 5 minutes. This is a quick video and I'll see you guys in the